Whiskey.
May it be well. The morning sun hits your eyes. May you be well. Let that light shine the truth on them lies. And may it be still when the storms rage all around. May it be still when the storms rage all around. May you be still.
Where arts and culture summits the airwaves, this is the Nine Rails Arts Podcast.
May you be strong when you know it's too much to bear.
I am R. Brandon Long alongside Todd Obendorfer, and we are the Banyan Collective, arts and adventure podcasting since 2010. This episode includes a porch session with our friends, Ink Dwell founders, science illustrator and muralist Jane Kim, and adventure journalist Thayer Walker, along with studio assistants Laura, Ash, and Fio.
And may you be well. And may you be still. May you be strong. May you be still. May you be well.
Yes, that is a little something new from the Nine Rails Arts Podcast house band, The Proper Way. I think they teamed up with Ryan Hawthorne on that song, on that
I love
track.
it. And that's how we roll. Yeah. I love how we just mentioned the last time we saw them, hey, we could use some new music. Within days, we get a message over. How long do you need it?
Well, they are a house band, a
Yeah.
podcast house band. So
I can't wait till we start doing more live events. It's going to be fantastic.
now they are going to be taking over November's van sessions. They meaning The Proper Way. The Proper Way will be curating, scheduling the van sessions in November for Ogden's First Friday Art Stroll, November 2nd at the Monarch. And I believe it'll be The Proper Way combined with, so they have a new album coming out, and so they're going to be promoting that with Carrie Myers, and not sure if this is for sure yet, but maybe even Ryan Hawthorne will be there as well. So
Now, how long ago was Carrie Myers in? She's been in a few times, hasn't she?
I think 3.
3 times.
Because she did
She helped us out once at an event, didn't
the
she?
unofficial event up at Weber State University. Yeah. Yeah. And then it was the first time she was in the van. I remember thinking, well, that was gold.
No, it was a very fortunate moment. It really was.
Yes. And then she came back for a couple more times. So Carrie, you don't want to miss Carrie at all. And that's on, again, November 2nd. The First Friday Art Stroll, it's van sessions. It's a live podcast that we do in association with Ogden City Arts, and it's a blast. So we had a lot of fun. It was pretty good the first time around.
The energy was fantastic. The vibe was great. It's going to be a good new home for us.
We stayed up late last night on the porch with the founders of Ink Dwell. That would be muralist, science illustrator Jane Kim and Thayer Walker. Outdoor adventure journalist Thayer Walker. They are the epitome of arts and adventure.
They're about the coolest couple I know. Yeah, I love them
pretty
so
much.
much.
Yeah.
But they are about halfway into their 2-month stay, Ogden residency, and so they're wrapping things up at the Monarch, and before they head up to Weber State. And so we had a chance to sit down and talk to them about everything.
Yeah.
I think you'll notice that all topics were covered, including I think we talked about Kelly Clarkson for a bit.
Kelly Clarkson made the topic. Yes, it was fun. And it got deep at times and philosophical at times, and it was fun throughout. So yeah, this is a fantastic interview. This is our interview with Ink Dwell founders Jane Kim and Thayer Walker.
All right, so what are we drinking? We're going to start this again. So this is a Japanese whiskey.
It's Suntory brand Japanese whiskey.
And it made it all the way across.
Yes.
And you're sharing it with us. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
I am.
So We're going to start this with the toast.
Right?
Yes,
Right.
kanpai.
Kampai.
Kampai. Cheers.
Kanpai.
And Fio, you just
Not drinking it.
you just brought this over, right, Fio?
I don't think I got you.
Yes, I did.
Wow.
April, did I get you? Cheers. All right, so we are set up on Chaburka Porch, as we're now calling this, where Matt is inside. I think last time we were on here, Matt wasn't even home, so this works out well. Yeah.
I'm gonna
So-
pitch a tent here.
Thank you, Chaburkas. We do appreciate you. And so today is the day I've been looking forward to for a while. We have Ink Dwell. We have all of Ink Dwell. Is there any more?
No, this is the full crew.
Well, there's like some
This-
lawyers
well-
and accountants and stuff.
Oh,
But,
no,
you know,
that's a
I mean,
different
that's
one.
like, but yeah, this is the creative team.
Wah, wah. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're very fortunate to have everybody. Thank you so much. It is kind of a nice romantic mood. I think that, April, did you take a picture or two? Okay, perfect. And so let's start things off. My name's Todd Oberndorfer, and Brandon is
Todd.
right beside me.
Hello.
Brandon's going to
Brandon.
kind of keep an eye on volumes and things. Thank you so much for your patience. We've been doing this for 8-9 years, and this is the most like
Wow.
technical difficulty wire work that we've had. So, yes, I'm not sure what's going on with that, but I think everything is recording now. So thank you for your patience. We do appreciate that. I think it's a good time now to maybe go around the group. Thayer's here, Jane is here, Laura's here, Ash is here, Fio's here, and April is here. And April's going to be helping out. But April's a good person to talk to. Her connection to the two of us, but also local help, which is fantastic, right?
So excited about this.
Okay,
Thank
so that's
you.
great. So Thayer, let's talk about you for just a second.
Okay, hello.
What's your position with Ink Dwell, original co-founder?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Thayer Walker. Hello, Ogden. I'm happy to be here. It's a sort of a bit of a homecoming for me because I lived in Eden for several years, so it's always wonderful to be back. I am the co-founder of Ink Dwell Studio, publisher, husband to the talented Jane Kim, and
Did you say publisher?
yeah, co-founder,
Art
publisher.
Okay,
yeah.
so we'll have to talk about that as
Yeah.
well. So publishing and mural work, I don't know the crossover, so we'll have to go deeper. than
Yeah,
that.
we can dive in. We're diving deep. And yeah, I do. I kind of handle a lot of the business end. The ladies very smartly keep me far away from the paintbrushes.
Well, I'm so glad they invited you out.
Yeah. I do play a part, although it is not in creating any of the spectacular and dramatic imagery and installations that tend to have a spectacular impact on.
But you
on
do
the
have
world.
overalls.
I do have overalls, and occasionally I will paint when it doesn't require too much technical detail, just to keep my hands dirty.
I'm sure it's very appreciated.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
And sitting next to you on the porch is, of course, Jane Kim. Sort of I'd say kind of the face behind the whole thing, but it really is a collaborative group. I know that.
Oh yeah, definitely. Hi, Ogden. My name is Jane. Yes, hello. I don't know. I don't want to say anything until you ask me a question.
Something very specific. You don't want to give away anything too
No,
deep.
I'm horrible improver, and I really like to think I'm funny, but I'm not. So I'm just gonna let you ask me the question.
Okay, so what came first, the mural work or the ink dwell? The ink dwell came after the fact. Was it a significant piece that kind of got everything started? What was sort of the nugget that got things started?
The nugget that got things started was actually my desire to study scientific illustration. So I went to the Rhode Island School of Design. I have a BFA in printmaking. I loved,
Woo woo.
yeah.
BFA
Yes.
printmaking.
Yes.
That's me too. Yeah.
That's good stuff. And I think I've always had an obsession and have been wildly inspired by animals and the natural world. Didn't really quite know what to do with that. So science illustration, after having been graduated from undergrad BFA for about 6 years, I pursued scientific illustration, honestly, mostly because of the educational and informative engagement component, getting back into the technical drawing, getting back to observing life is kind of what steered me into Inkdwell. And I actually created a blog called Inkdwell when I was in the program to just document my journey as a scientific illustrator, and that carried through once I decided to formalize a studio space, and I kept the name Inkdwell.
And so where'd the name come from?
So it's a play on words. It's
Inked well.
inked well,
Right.
about places that I like to dwell. So it was about that whole experience and just wanting to share the wonders of my environment and hopefully get people excited about it too in the process.
Well, it's a perfect name.
Thank
I
you.
mean, I love it on both levels.
You
But
know,
I
it's
do
really,
have to
really
enunciate
hard to say,
ink
though.
dwell.
Yeah. Anytime we have to say Jane at inkdwell.com, it's like INK DW. No, not ED, just INKDWEL.
Well, see, Brandon's gotten so much better too. He'll just automatically say with Banyan, he goes Banyan with
Yeah.
our Banyan Collective. Just
Yeah.
he does it as he's introducing himself. It's Banyan, right? Where I don't think that because I'm so connected to Banyan,
Right.
for years, and so he thinks of it more on the logistical side. I think. Yeah.
Spelling out is really helpful.
Especially nowadays where you have to hashtag things. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, right, that
Yeah.
thing. You remember when it was just a pound symbol?
Pound. Yeah.
And now it's a hashtag? What is that?
That could actually be a whole like meme or remember when it was a pound symbol?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
guess
I
it
do
would be-
remember.
I guess it'd be a
Yeah.
product for old people.
I think it would just age us is what
Yeah.
that would do.
Right.
And if there's one thing old people are into, it's podcasts, and so that's perfect.
There we
Yeah.
go. So we're in the perfect venue for that.
Yeah. I don't
boy,
know
oh
about
boy.
that. If you don't mind, we'll go around the rest of the group.
Which leads us to our youth movement here to the left.
Our youth movement.
Our youth movement.
Yay!
So this
the
is-
youngest in the group.
Spiritually the oldest, though.
That's I won't deny that.
Yeah. My name is Laura Macias. I am one of Jane's assistants, and I also do the graphic design work for Inkwell. I'm also a science illustrator. I have my degree is in biology from USF, and then I have a minor in fine art. And I met Jane in the science illustration program at CSUMB, and she was my teacher. And I asked her for an internship, and she said yes, and then she gave me a job.
Laura is a hustler, by the way. I just want to point this out. Like, because I remember when so Jane was teaching, it was her first year, and Laura's name came up a couple times, and I had never met her or anything, but I'd sort of Jane forwarded me some emails, and I was like, who this woman's a hustler. I like her. So she definitely hustled. She definitely hustled her way in.
Yeah.
So
It's
big-
kind
big
of what you
props.
have to do.
Yeah.
Totally not qualified is what that is.
No, she's qualified,
That's not what that
but she
means.
was able. You got to cut through. You got to cut through the noise. You got to cut through the noise.
It doesn't hurt to ask.
No, be persistent in talking. I do advising, over at the university, and that's one of the big things. It's just being persistent, and so especially choosing to, work in the arts and humanities. It's not going to necessarily always be an easy pathway, and so opportunities like having a class with Jane. How was that? How was she as a teacher? So I'm teaching my very first class this semester, and it's, I don't know how I am at it quite yet. I'm only 3 classes in, but how was she as a teacher?
She was great. I think I don't know if she was a little nervous at first, if it was her first job, but I didn't feel any nervous energy. I thought she was really good, and I think she challenged the class, and she came at the very end of the year, so it's kind of like a breath of fresh air. We got a new energy, very different assignments, so it was nice.
Was this an advanced level?
Yeah, it's
class?
a graduate course. It's a
Okay.
1-year certificate program, and she taught the zoological class.
How many students? How big a program is this? I'm not familiar.
It's a cohort of 15 students each year, so it's really small.
Cal State Monterey. What?
Yeah.
What? All right, we're working our way around to Fio, which we mistakenly
Hi.
said Fee the other day. I apologize.
There are
Fio.
many different versions of my name. It's Fiorella Ikeue, but I go by Fio or Fu or Rella or Fee or whatever people
I
come
love
up
it.
with.
You're my first Fio. I love it. Yeah.
And I'm also like Laura. I have a degree in biology, and I went to the science illustration program as well. And now I'm Jane's artist assistant.
So it was a recruitment program. It was what it was.
It was actually, it worked out way better than I had ever even, I didn't even actually go into teaching that thinking that would happen. But man, I have.
No, what a great opportunity. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really stellar team.
Okay, so both of you, outside of the work that you do with Inkwell, what kind of work do you do on your own? Because I know you're all artists in your own right. So
I do Inkwell work. I don't do anything.
that's mostly what you have time
That's
to do.
mostly what I have time to do. But
And do you
yeah,
do some freelance graphic design or just mostly with Inkwell?
mostly with with Inkwell, but my passion is marine invertebrates, so that's my favorite thing to draw. That's what I studied in undergrad.
Marine invertebrates. Woo woo.
Like jellyfish, octopi.
Nudie brain.
Nudibranchs. What up?
And Fia, what do you do outside of the Inkwell?
So yeah, I do some freelance stuff, and that's slowly growing in momentum. But yeah, a lot of Inkwell stuff, and I'm pretty much a generalist. I like all creatures, so I'll take on any project.
A generalist. I think I'm kind of a generalist. I think. I'm like, what's even more broad than generalist? I feel that's me sometimes. All right, and so we'll meet one more person, Ash.
Hi, I'm Ash. Gosh, these ladies are all so talented. Thanks. I don't have a science illustration background, but I've always been inspired
Okay,
by
cut the mic. Cut the mic.
All right,
That's it.
why are you here? Why are you here? I know.
Wait, just as proper introduction, if I may, we have is Ms. Ashley Ferlito.
Oh, that's
So,
my
yes,
full name.
yes.
Yes. Right, but I go by Ash. Yeah, always been inspired by the natural world, and have made work from observation, abstraction, different bodies of work that I've carried on in my life. And I met Jane a long time ago in San Francisco, and we met as friends first. And I've always admired her work, and I was in
Vice versa.
Thank you, Jane. And I happened to be in Ithaca, New York, where the Wall of Birds is, which is this incredible project, which I'm sure Thayer and Jane will talk about in a while. But I got to see it in person, and people go to Ithaca, people live in Ithaca, but it felt really special to be in front of this incredible project. And so I hadn't spoken with Jane in a long time. I mean, years. I want to say maybe a decade, maybe 10 years. And I just wrote her this email about how moved I was seeing it and wanted to connect with her about what she'd been up to. And the lovely Jane Kim gave me a call on the phone, and we had a really nice phone call. And I just sort of, hustled myself and was sort of like, if you ever need help with a project, please let me know. And
And in fact, we did need help with a project. So Ash joined us in Orlando for one of the migrating murals, the Monarch migrating murals. And ever since then, it was kind of like, okay, this
Was that the one on the black
woman,
wall?
yes.
Oh, so beautiful.
This woman is a staple for Inkwell.
Midnight Dream.
I love it. Now, Jane isn't the only internationally renowned artist that you work with, correct?
That's right. I work for an artist in New York City.
And that is?
Jenny Holzer.
Yeah, see, that's kind of a big deal.
She's a big deal. That's right. She's a big deal.
I mean, we could
She's
leave it in
one-
parentheses if you want to, but it's kind of cool.
No, she's
I think it's
incredible,
really
and it's like she's wonderful to work for. Yeah, I've been there 4 years now. Yeah,
4 years is significant.
Yeah.
And she also encourages, I'm sure, like Jane does, your own work. What kind of work do you do?
A painting mostly, some sculpture, a little bit of video here and there, but I tend to have an idea for a body of work and flesh that out over in a series, and then maybe move on. But certain elements sort of come up. For a long time, I was making work that sort of felt from like an internal place, or somehow processing the culture around me. But I think that was partly a function of living in New York City. And I think that a theme in the last few years was sort of reconnecting with the natural world and that influence in my life, and what an important part of inspiration that is for me. And so that feels really great to be outside. I've done a lot of landscape painting in the last few years, and just looking.
So you've started to
looking
find a
outwards.
balance. I think it's all about the balance. I think more times than not when I'm talking to artists artists in general, I think that it's not necessarily just the one thing that they do, right? You mentioned the word hustle before. I tend to use that word a lot, even just myself, as far as all the different things. I think I have 4 or 5 things that could be just a single job for some people, and I've just kind of got my foot in all those.
Yeah.
But you've managed to find a pretty good balance.
Yeah, totally. And I like playing with different materials and different style, and I find that the novelty, the freedom that comes with using new materials is really exciting for me, that sort of experimentation. Actually, in the Van sessions, that young band that you played with,
Sammy Brew, the first ones?
yeah, they were so great.
They were so great.
And there was this really, we were working, but they said something really great, sort of what's your style? And, you talked about the sort of eclecticness of where the music comes from. And sometimes we do this and sometimes we do that. And I'm a little bit like that as a visual artist. And sometimes that feels like sort of a different kind of territory, because sometimes artists sort of feel this need to have this style, and that's not what I do. And that's one of the reasons why I've really admired Jane is like all the murals that I've worked on that I've seen have a different inspiration. I think they really respond to the place and respond to like a specific inspiration, which I think is really cool. Really
it's
exciting
a nice transition
to see.
back into the migrating murals. I think that's probably a good time to start that. If we swivel it back around to you, Jane, let's start talking about your first migrating mural project that sort of instigated this Monarch butterfly project.
Ooh, actually, the first migrating mural,
Well,
if
should
we're
we
going
go
to
back
go
even
all
further?
the way back, is actually about Sierra Nevada bighorn sheep.
Right.
So, yeah, so we want to go rewind all of that back. The idea was really when I was in the car on a long road trip. And it was just, wait, something's happening. Did I miss something?
I'm drinking Sierra Nevada, and my mic works now.
Oh,
So-
cool.
Oh, good.
So when she said Sierra Nevada, I didn't go straight to Bighorn. I went.
You went to
Pale
your
Ale.
beer. Oh, my God. That's
See, I
even
didn't get that either. That's a nice
Which is
transition.
not a bad idea for a corporate partnership. We
Oh,
should
man,
really
oh,
be
man.
looking into that for our next migrating. I don't know why I didn't think of that before.
Okay,
If
wait.
anyone from Sierra Nevada is listening to this podcast right now, info@inkwell.com.
A lot of breweries do listen to us. It's true.
Oh,
yeah.
my
We've got an
gosh.
epic project for you to get behind.
That's
So
why I'm
when
here.
this guy called Laura a hustler, that was like the ultimate compliment because this one.
But you have to have that on the team, so that's perfect. Yeah.
That's right. Anyway, back to the Sierra Nevada bighorn sheep and beer are both fabulous.
Where were you? Where were you driving? I thought you were driving. Were you driving through the Sierras, or were you?
No,
you were
no.
driving
I
somewhere
was.
else, right?
I
Weren't you
was
like
just.
5 or something like
Nope,
that.
nope. I was driving
Monterey?
from Monterey back
Yeah.
to San Francisco
Yeah.
and wishing that I had seen more informative and beautiful billboards describing the natural environment. And I thought, you know what? I should start a series of murals that actually talk about real places, real time, species that can be found, and inspire people to connect with their immediate environment. So that's actually kind of how that all came about. And so the first series was 6 murals. It was along 120 miles in California, Highway 395, Bighorn sheep territory. Only 600 of these sheep exist today, and they can only be found in the Sierra Nevada range.
Has
So
that number changed since you did?
it was
It
500
has,
when
yeah.
I was doing
So it's
that.
gone
It's
up a
now
bit.
600, and so it is actually
I don't
kind
want
of
to say it had to do with the murals, but
Well, no.
No.
There's some very concerted effort. Can I fill in a few blanks that maybe you left out?
yes, you're really good at that because I'm very bad at this. Go.
So I think this is when Jane was finishing up as a student at CSUMB and kind of got this idea. And then one of the requirements for graduating is having an internship. And so you were at
In Yosemite, the Sierra Nevada Research Institute
Right.
through UC Merced,
and so that's when you discovered
the Sierra
even
Nevada
exist-
bighorn sheep.
Right. And I grew up in I grew up in San Francisco. I worked in Yosemite for years, and I
yeah,
like
you don't
never
look like you're from California at all.
Nah.
He doesn't sound like he's from California
Nope.
either.
Nope, not at all.
It's the giant Golden State tattoo I have on my forehead. It's anyway. But I had never even heard of these animals before. This is like huge megafauna that like lives in my backyard, and I didn't know about them. And Jane had discovered them, and in part of her desire to
I didn't discover
no.
that.
Well, you discovered them for yourself,
Yes.
and then shared them with me,
Yes.
and hence the world.
Yes.
And that was the conversation that's that's an ideal audience, and that you were a good example of that.
Well, and to your question about sort of the formation of Inkwell was, Jane had this blog called Inkwell, which was not the name of the studio.
Do you remember when .blogspot.com
Yeah.
was a thing?
That was a thing.
That's when
Yeah.
that was actually taking place.
And so this concept of the migrating mural, well, so there was sort of 2 stages. So Jane shared the idea with me, and I, of course, immediately kind of, poked a little bit of fun at her just because,
He did.
that's what I do.
He started laughing out loud.
Well, no, I didn't. I kind
At
of
your
chuckled.
dreams.
He did.
I
He
kinda
laughed out
chuckled a little
loud
bit
at
because
my dreams, and he said, "I'm envisioning a penguin carrying a suitcase."
Yeah, but
my
she said
gosh.
a migrating mural. I was like, I'm thinking of like an emperor penguin like walking with a suitcase, and then she didn't talk to me for like 3 days. She was really mad at me.
Okay, there's a reason why
Yeah.
April and I love you two so much
Yeah.
because this is how I've inspired her through these
Right.
years. Is just mercilessly making fun
Merciless
of her
teasing,
dreams.
right.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Feels good, right?
Oh, I'm so bad. I'm so bad.
So we have a long day of production every day forever. So it sounds like
The worker bees got to go to bed.
three fifths of our team is going to retire here. So
Actually, I also this is kind of embarrassing. I'm going to admit this out loud, but this is the first mural where we've designated a day off.
Yeah.
Actually, a lot of times these ladies are hustling so hard with me and busting their fucking asses. I'm sorry, I'm swearing. It's happening because they are really amazing team, and they put everything that they have into these murals along with me, and I can't thank them enough. But we actually have a day off tomorrow, so they are gonna
Start
sleep
early.
Yeah,
in,
they're gonna
and
sleep.
they're gonna go home and do whatever.
Yeah.
Well, Laura's gonna do some more work. Fio's probably gonna do some more of her own work, and Ash is gonna be doing amazing. Ash is. I don't know what are you
Sleep?
gonna do.
I
You're gonna
think
go to
sleep
bed.
sounds good.
She's gonna be sleeping and
Yeah.
dreaming hard.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
Yeah. Anyway,
thank you so much for joining us today on
Yeah.
this program.
Sticking around.
See you guys.
for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jane.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Good night, you guys.
Good night. So
Okay,
once
so we
got-
can
once
start
got-
talking about Ash and Laura.
So
and
once
Theo
we got
again, that's
so
good.
yeah, so once we got past the Emperor Penguin with the suitcase, it obviously sounded like a great idea, and I certainly saw the potential and wanted to help as much as possible, and that project, just the concept itself actually sort of lent itself to the formation of the studio, because suddenly, Jane's like, yeah, I want to do this series of murals about this, iconic megafauna in California that no one really knows about, and it
This
needs
is
a lot
no
of help.
small feat. This
Yeah.
project.
Yeah. And I was like, whoa, that sounds big and awesome, and you could build something really cool around that, and then that was sort of the foundation of really the entire studio.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I think that set the tone for public art being kind of the main medium for Inktwell. Science illustration has a lot of impact, but I don't think that it's necessarily in the form of public art. It's a lot of journals, it's a lot of online and web textbook, interpretive signage, but I really wanted to create something that could have a lot of accessible impact, and so that really was kind of the type of artwork that we wanted to set for Inktwell in the future. And
So, Jane, is it safe to say public art was not the first thing that not the first direction you were going?
no, not necessarily. Actually, before I had decided to do this program, I went to LA and I was at the La Brea Tar Pits and the Page Museum, and there was this really beautiful display, a permanent display of articulated bird skeletons, and behind them were gorgeous, just absolutely stunning paintings of the birds in that same position as the skeletons, and they were done by Jack Dawson. He lives in Hawaii.
Not that Jack Dawson, Titanic.
No, different.
Yeah, different.
Wow!
different
Wow! Definitely different.
Although Leo would probably appreciate Jack Dawson.
Yeah. And I remember thinking to myself, man, I want to do that. That looks really amazing. I just remembered and it was so many verticals. It was the experience of the visitor, heightening that, making me feel more connected. So there was that aspect of it. Just the technicality of his paintings, that was another aspect of it. The natural world. I mean, there were so many different layers that it was sort of hitting at the time that inspired me and motivated me to do science illustration. But I think doing it in a way that didn't require a ticket to a museum or, something that required an extra step. It's just there. It's a part of your everyday experience and vernacular. You can get people excited. It can become a landmark. It's a monument to wildlife. It was so many different things that felt more impactful, I think. So that's kind of what set off Inkwell as a studio. It's just something impactful that was going to help people become more connected to the beauty and the wonder of our planet.
And I think as the mission statement, gets a little bit more concrete when you're starting an organization, and if you stay true to that, then everything else sort of just forms around that.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And so the extra work that y'all are doing on top of the mural work still follows that same mission statement, correct?
100%.
And so, and we'll talk about the murals, but I wanted to get to know you just a little bit better, Thayer. And so, obviously, you bring mockery and support and all the, and all the good things to the table.
The glue, is that what you meant? The glue? Yeah.
But your life itself is very interesting, right?
Thank you.
You've had some amazing adventures. What's your background?
So my background, I've been actually a correspondent for Outside Magazine for the last 15 years.
Yeah, we made her to Outside Magazine.
Yeah.
Little startup.
Yeah, it's
a
great.
little startup.
I mean, I was reading it as a kid.
I think they're going to make it.
I think they're gonna make it. So I read it growing up, and just always thought that it was. I mean, it just always really inspired me, and have always just really had a passion for telling stories, and particularly stories of the natural world and exploration and science and adventure. And so I was, Jane and I met when I was really, really deep into that, and we had a lot of that in common. And Inkwell has really just been a progression of storytelling about the natural world. It's just a different way to do it. I mean, I'm still
so really an evolution of the work that you were already doing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still writing, writing articles. We actually obviously have but we have our first book coming out next month. And so for me, although I don't, I have, I am challenged at drawing a straight line with a ruler. I don't have a lot of visual artistic ability. I have long been telling stories about the natural world. And so, Jane has more enough artistic talent for the two of us. And
you have enough for a room full of people.
Yeah, for a room full of people.
Your talent's up there, my lady.
Thanks.
So I am able to add, my storytelling abilities in other ways that help, hopefully tell that story in a much broader manner.
Whenever I have the chance to talk to artists that have made it work, it is important to find out some of those details about how, I think more times than not, it's finding the right partners is huge.
It's
setting
so
out on
huge.
your own is a whole different story than finding that other person that satisfies that other half to some degree.
I would love to add on to that, actually, in talking about Thayer's story. So Thayer and I met before I actually went to the scientific illustration program. So meeting him really ended up giving me that extra, confirmation that this was the path that I wanted to, in fact, pursue. Because I had been sitting on this idea of applying for this program for many years. I graduated in 2003. I didn't apply until 2008. So in between that time, and Thayer and I met in 2008, it had been sort of ruminating and stewing and seeing him fulfill a passion of his and doing it independently as a freelance journalist.
Which is not easy.
Which is so not easy.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, holy crap, I want to do something like that for me too. I feel I was very motivated to find what it was that I wanted to do for me and the story that I wanted to tell, and just that concept of storytelling. I can't tell you how important that has become to Inkwell. Just what the narrative is, what story are we telling, what's the point of why we're doing what we're doing. We have to figure that out first and foremost.
It is, because your potential of Inkwell is endless. like it's endless. And so honestly choosing the next thing,
Yeah.
and maybe that's why you're doing some multiple things, you know?
Yeah, and so I mean, really, Thayer was so encouraging of me to do this program, and yeah, he definitely does mock me and make fun of me and poke fun at my ideas, but it's all in good jest, and
It's rooted in love.
it's rooted in love, and he knows a good story, and it's been so instrumental for us to actually combine our efforts, and it's made Inkwell that much more successful and powerful.
Well, congratulations on your new studio. That was a huge step.
Oh yeah.
Thanks for the cactus, guys.
Oh yeah.
That
Yeah,
succulent.
Yeah. So cool.
I hope we don't kill it in the time that we're here in
we have.
Ogden.
Oh, my cousin.
I'll
Nick,
tell you now that was a consideration.
yeah, I
Yeah.
appreciate
It's
that.
like a long term.
The orchids haven't done as well, but the cacti are doing great. So,
Yeah.
you know.
I'm telling you what, that it's like, well, what do you give somebody or a studio
Yeah.
when you want to give some love, you
Right.
know, but you know that they don't spend a lot of time in the studio, like
Oh,
they spend
man.
weeks away.
Yeah.
We tried.
Yeah, the studio just for the listeners. So we less than a year in it now. It's this beautiful spot. It's in the harbor at Half Moon Bay, which is actually the jumping off point for Mavericks, the big, terrifying, horrible wave right off the coast of Half Moon Bay. So it's right there. So it's this beautiful spot. There's all of this state park and protected land around there, and
Great tide pooling.
yeah, great tide pooling, tons of surf. I mean, there's actually like a great blue herons that like just kind of hop around the open field right in front of our studio. So
Yeah,
it's,
that
we're-
doesn't sound inspiring at all.
Yeah, we
Not
really
for especially what we do.
No,
yeah, we
exactly.
really lucked
Yeah.
out. We really lucked out. So we're open by appointment. So if anyone ever wants to come check it out, just drop us a line and we'll
We
we'll
will.
open our
It's so
doors.
beautiful out there. I
Yeah.
can't wait to go out and visit.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's bring it back around to Ogden. So you are.
I'm sorry, I just have to say one more thing about
No,
that
please.
succulent.
No, go ahead.
It couldn't have come at a better time because it was before everyone got there, and it honestly, like receiving that succulent from you in April was like, oh, this is a win today already. Like I'm like, I don't even care what happens. It was just like so lovely to get that and to have people from afar thinking of us. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Well, I think it is extremely important to support each other.
Yeah.
Right, in all ways, particularly since more than anything, I'm sure we wanted to be there, and so it was a way of us sort of peeking in through succulent eyes, I guess. Yeah, exactly.
That's a song, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
Through succulent eyes.
Through
Right,
succulent
that
eyes,
is a
yeah.
good.
It's like an older song,
Yeah.
but it's very good. Yeah.
True.
Okay,
Isn't,
Good stuff,
isn't that
it's
like
good
a
stuff.
Kelly Clarkson remix, maybe? Like, yeah, right.
I really like Kelly Clarkson.
Yeah,
we
I
can
did-
go off
I
about
noticed-
that too.
Yeah, we like her too.
And you know what? Another reason
The
why I love her
original
so
Idol?
much. The original Idol, but the reason why,
She is, yeah.
and this is by April and I both, is the fact that she is so fun off the stage.
Yeah.
Right?
She
and so I seem to be
is.
really connecting with her through interviews. She must have this amazing relationship with Jimmy Fallon. And so whenever the two of them hang out, it's just like, I want to hang out with her.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And when she was a judge on The Voice,
Yes.
oh my gosh, she
She's
was
kind of sets herself apart,
she was
doesn't
great.
she?
Yeah.
She was great.
When we shoot pool together, we always have the best time. So it's me and Kel. I call it Kel. You know,
Does she like it when you call her Kel?
I don't know.
The
She
Kel
still doesn't
circle.
return my calls anymore, so maybe not.
Kelster is good. I like that.
Kelster,
So,
yeah.
okay, so you're about halfway through your Ogden visit. Is that about right?
Yeah,
Maybe not quite
almost,
half, but-
almost. Wow, it goes fast.
Yeah.
Okay, so your first project was done outside of the state. It's these beautiful banners outside of the Ogden Nature Center, which we just love, and so let's talk about that for a second because we love the Ogden Nature Center so much, and they've been so supportive about everything we've done. I think they are regulars on our podcast. They're our outdoor
Oh,
adventure
that's
ones.
so
and this one.
great.
And so the connections with every single thing you're doing and everything that we do couldn't be more crossed over. And so I just love that so much. And so what were the steps with Ogden Nature Center banners? Because those are up now
Yep.
and they're beautiful.
And they're seasonal, so they'll be taken down during the winter, but back again in the spring.
And so what was that process? What were they looking for? What did you just give them something out of the blue?
Kind of, yeah. So they were very supportive of the Monarch Migrating Mural project. And so obviously they wanted something that was going to be depicting monarchs. They have amazing milkweed on their land. And had actually a really beautiful show for various elementary schools in their center of drawings that different schools participated in of monarchs. So, I think monarchs are very important to them. But they didn't necessarily have like a direction or a specific goal in mind. They were very, very free with
so
me,
nice.
and said, just kind of do whatever you think. We don't even have to have words, because their previous banners had the words like welcome or, whatever. It was it's a bit more of an entryway, but we can get rid of those words. Just do whatever you think is going to be best.
They actually told you to take the words off.
They did.
The first round, they're like, just get the words out. We just like the art.
Just
get
the
get
art.
the words away. Yeah.
Which worked perfect because they have this big, beautiful Ogden Nature Center sign. You don't need the words on there.
Yeah, they have a great logo, a great entryway sign on this beautiful wood sign. So, I think the idea came more about the collective triad of Migrating Murals in Ogden with Weber State's art department, the Monarch with the new 9 Rails Creative District, and then the Ogden Nature Center. It was kind of a beautiful opportunity to tell a story about art history. So felt very compelled to do something more pattern and decorative based. So William Morris came to my mind immediately, who was maybe one of the coolest naturalists, and how he brought nature into our everyday lives. And so I think Inkwell is searching always to figure out how to bring these amazing ideas about nature and beautiful imagery in our everyday lives. And William Morris did just that. He created wallpaper. He created was the pioneer for the arts and crafts movement to really bring beauty into our home. And so having that as my inspiration, and he was a naturalist. He would be out in his beautiful gardens drawing and sketching from nature as well. That was the motivator behind the Ogden Nature Center banners. So it's 6 banners of the life cycle of the monarch butterfly, from egg to chrysalis to adult butterfly, but it is set on this garden repetitive pattern of milkweed and columbine, which are, of course, 2 native plants that you can find in the Wasatch Range. So it's yeah.
I didn't know that. That's great.
There's a particularly special component to those banners.
The egg. Yeah, not the chrysalis, not to be confused with the chrysalis, but the egg of the monarch. No one gets to see the egg.
No one gets to see the egg.
Unless you're looking for it and you know it, because they're tiny. It's the size of a pinhead, and it's on the underside of monarch leaves. And they're jewels. They are these like gorgeous, ridged, iridescent, sort of greenish toned gems that you can see on the underside of leaves if you know to look for them. So the very first banner depicts this awesome egg.
Okay,
and
now we all need to go look at that.
Yeah,
banner.
now you need to all go look at the egg.
Yeah. And that was, I mean, as we were discussing it, I mean, when you think of monarchs, first you think of the orange and black butterfly, and then, you'll think of maybe the crazy striped caterpillar. But
and
no one ever
gorgeous
knows what
green
or the chrysalis, but no one ever knows what the egg looks like.
We just don't talk about eggs nearly enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Inkwell's logo happens to be an egg. We really love eggs. There's so much potential in an egg.
We could actually, if we ever wanted to switch it up, if we ever wanted to switch the turkey egg up, we could do that. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Okay,
so that's I mean, getting back to that, or touching on that a little bit more. I mean, one of the things that I really appreciate about Jane's work in philosophy is that she'll always there's always a really deep educational focus to it, even if people don't know they're actually learning, or even if people don't actually realize they're learning. But when she explained the concept of the egg to me and why it was important to have it there, it just made all the sense in the world. Simply because it's not something that people are really familiar with. So there's always that real component of not just beauty, but learning and education that I think is really inherent in everything that you create.
Oh, see, I'm additionally inspired, honest to goodness, because as an artist in the other sort of printmaking area, the sort of activist work I do, I like to include that extra,
Yeah.
right? That might
Yeah.
draw you in further than just an immediate message. And
Yeah.
so
Totally.
thank you for that. I do love how the Nature Center, that whole thing was a little bit kind of a full circle, and we were able to do that Birds and Brews visit
Oh, that
and
was
spend an
so
evening out
much
there.
fun.
There you missed out. Oh, it was
I
so
know.
much
I saw
fun.
the photos. It looked great.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
we had so much fun.
We were very
beer
mediocre though in
pairings.
trivia.
Oh.
Our team came in literally.
I thought we
in
were
the
riggers.
middle.
Honest to goodness, I was just like, okay, our team are, and then of course all these incredible bird experts and biology experts.
She was.
I think still holding a little bit of a. Those were legit questions. Like they weren't
Yeah.
messing around.
Yeah, they were not messing around.
That being said, I got like maybe I didn't contribute all that much. I did. I contributed with the beer. I mean that part I did. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so if we're going the next step, another part of the little trio of the collaborative work here, and so the work that you're doing now is down at the Monarch building, and it's working with a group. It's a Ogden arts nonprofit. It's called Ogden First, and it's incredible. I thought that I've been visiting regularly, and I haven't been for over a week, and so I went down today, and you're on the streets on 25th, and so everybody's seeing little peaks. It's behind a fence, and so there'll be a nice little reveal once that fence gone. But kind of take us through that project and how it developed, and then I know we're working backwards a little bit from the Weber one, but we'll talk about that a little bit more later.
Okay, yeah, no, it's all good. So this was really a fun opportunity. I'm not gonna lie. This is probably one of the only opportunity. Well, I mean, I shouldn't count my chickens before they hatch, but it isn't often that I'm able to really step outside of a more science or information focused image.
Exactly. I
And
see
and
that, yeah.
this is one where I felt I had a little bit more liberty to do so. So the Monarch is I'm sure you all are familiar with what the Monarch is going to be, but it's going to be sort of this hub of a creative district.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's 40 plus artist studios, an event space, a coffee shop, an art gallery, you name it. It's supposed to be a mecca for creative inspiration. And as such, I really wanted to create a piece that spoke to that idea. And so I've done Monarch work now for over a year, and those black and white spots that they have on the edges of their wings have always been a graphic element that I have in my mind. Said, man, I really need to do something with this, with that pattern, because it's just so stunning. And of course, the op art movement in the 60s was a perfect way to incorporate a piece of art history, of fashion, of culture, all in one, and the Monarch all in one
The
piece.
halftone dots. I love them so
Yes,
much. Yeah.
yes, and the undulating dots, and the Monarchs kind of moving in and out, and the Monarchs driving the way that the dot pattern actually moves, was really quite fun. And I don't know if we're ever going to have another opportunity to really focus on the aesthetic qualities of the Monarch over the habitat or the story of the important story of their ecosystems and what we need to do to support a healthy monarch population.
And especially in a downtown environment, because
Yeah.
that location is right in the middle of our downtown area, and so you wouldn't necessarily expect that. And so bringing that, I think it's that idea of particularly public art. A lot of people are very familiar with that area. It's been around since the 20s, and so whatever is new disturbs that, right?
Sure.
It disturbs that sort of impression that everybody has, and I always see being disturbed with art as a good thing, right?
Yes.
And so I think that especially the more walking traffic that develops, and that's what's going to come with the new creative district, it is going to make an incredible impression.
I really hope so, and thank you for saying so. And honestly, thank you to Thane as well, who understands the value of art as something that revitalizes and excites a community and a city. So I'm really grateful for. I wish we had more developers like this in the world.
Yeah,
I couldn't agree more.
go Thane Fisher. Big shout out.
His support
Yeah.
is there.
It's
Yeah.
yeah.
It's hugely there. And honestly, everybody who's been involved in this project and everyone in Ogden, we couldn't have asked for better community support than we've had so far.
Well, and I think too, and just sort of putting it into the context of the Migrating mural as well, is that this is the Monarch. I mean, the Migrating mural is a sort of a scalable project where we focus on different. Different animals at different points. So for the Monarch, we're going to be focusing on the Monarch for the next couple of years and telling that story. And, we've started to tell the story, the kind of the natural history story. And I think what's really cool about what's happening here in Ogden is the fact that, the community is, is really focused on building and creating this vibrant arts district. And so to be able to draw upon these, styles and disciplines of, from art history to tell the story. So you're still telling a story about the natural world, but you're also telling a broader story about art history. I think is a really nice pairing, and gives everything a lot more depth.
Anytime you have a backstory to a piece that we won't necessarily see, it does nothing but help the piece. So I think that's brilliant. Oh, so a few more things that I do want to touch on before you guys go is first things first. How did this all get started? That's as far as your visit here to Ogden. How did this? This might be a good chance to sort of because you never know. Like we said,
Marshall Birnbaum.
I think it's a good time to thank Marshall for this.
For sure.
So
Wait,
little
that Marshall.
Marshall.
Yeah, Marshall. Yeah. So I actually some folks here in the area might know or recognize. I used to actually work at Summit and Powder Mountain. I was part of the group that that purchased the mountain a few years ago. I left the organization a few years ago to go and join build Inkwell full time.
Exactly.
But we still remain on great terms and a lot of love, a lot of friends over there. And Marshall was really instrumental. I mean, almost as soon as we kind of moved in here, Marshall started building informally the artist in residence program, and then more formally so. And last year invited you, Jane, to come on out.
That's right. And then he connected us to Weber State and to you, and you had set up a talk to introduce our project, the Migrating Mural, to the rest of Weber State.
I'm telling you, it's these little things.
It's
just
these
one step
little
leads to the next little step, and it's incredibly satisfying on all levels. And Thayer, you and I were just talking about this earlier, is the fact that making those connections is the most satisfying thing.
Yeah.
Or connecting the right person to the right person, and so that's what we were developing with the artists that were coming out, maybe connecting with students and faculty. And then
but I just want to say it takes that, it's a group effort always. It's never just in isolation, and it's always the support and the drumbeat that you create collectively that makes a project like this possible, or anything exciting possible. So that was really cool. And so your introduction to your colleagues and staff then led to them introducing it to Thane, who then introduced it to, actually kind of Ogden Nature Center and Thane and
Scott Springer. If he hadn't been at
Scott,
that first meeting,
Scott
and
Springer,
if he hadn't gone up to Powder
Scott,
that day,
that's right.
Well, Scott, so we went to you guys, and it was basically it was really funny because it was actually one of the we came to Weber State to give this talk, and there was it was so funny afterwards because we went in to give this talk, and there was 6 people in the room.
It was so last minute. It was like the
so
day
last
before or
minute.
something.
And so it was literally the smallest. I think it was the smallest audience that Jane had ever given a talk to. But we walked.
I feel special that I was there.
No,
exactly.
But we walked out. I remember we looked at each other. We walked out. We walked back to the car, and we're like, okay, that was a really. I think there were only 6 people in the room, But
But
I think it was the right 6 people.
Oh, the right
That
6
was it.
people.
It was great. I would rather give that talk to 6 people than like a full house of 1,000. And like it was like we kind of knew we're like, okay, this was the right spot to be in.
That was a
yeah,
good thing.
yeah.
That was a good thing.
That's sort of how we feel about our podcast. We want the right 6 people to listen.
Exactly.
All we gotta catch is those right 6 people. Yeah.
And so to that point, so Scott then came up to Powder Mountain that weekend because Jane was creating a painting at that time that we then digitized and turned into an installation in Arkansas, in Springdale, Arkansas. So she was actually out here creating the first Migrating mural, in which later we installed in Arkansas. So Scott came for that talk, and it kind of went rolling from there. And then we got this email, like probably I was like 6 months later, totally unexpected, from Thane, and it was just like it was the fastest. Like, okay, yes, we're doing this project. Like, usually there's kind of this whole, you have
usually
these
takes a year and a half or
and
more.
it's you're feeling each other out, and then it's like, and things like, yep, like
We're doing it.
Weaver State's doing it. We love the idea. Like, come on up. Like, shoot me your contract. Like, well, let's rock.
We've talked about this, and that's the brilliant part about a private sector, right?
Yeah.
As far as the speed of things.
Speed was
of
great.
A university, a public university,
Yeah.
like that's going to take some more steps.
Well,
through
we're
it.
used to both. We're used to both.
But
so.
it was a very quick decision,
yeah.
wasn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
Todd, who's Scott Springer?
The dean of the College of Arts and Humanities at Weaver State.
Okay.
Yep. Who has been? He's my boss's boss. So Matt Chaburka is my boss.
Right.
And
Chaburka
Scott
Porch,
Chaburka Porch. Yes,
Chaburka
exactly. And then Scott's his boss. And so
Oh my gosh.
being involved on my side, knowing that you're coming and being involved in, I wanted to know what was going on as much as possible during this process, right? Sort of invested from the beginning type of thing. And Scott's support has been incredible.
Yeah.
And Thane's support has been incredible. And the Nature Center support has been incredible. These all sound like good things.
Such good things. This is exactly what we're saying. This is a rare thing for a town to be this dedicated, this supportive, and then to have 3 installations in one place. I mean, that's
Coming out of that
pretty-
first meeting where you
Yeah.
expect,
Out
like,
of
hey, I'm
that
going to
first
be out
meeting,
here for 2 months.
6
and-
people.
We'd
Yeah.
hope so. I mean, honestly, like there are great places. I mean, this is a great place to be for a couple of months. And I think too, though, what our hope is, in some ways, this has redefined the model, but in other ways, it's sort of validated it, because the idea, the whole concept of the Migrating mural is that is really about. It is about travel. It's about migration. It's also about connection, right? And it's how are we connected? And one of the reasons why we chose the Monarch butterfly is because it really is, across North America, this cosmopolitan insect that it's found across the entire lower 48. It migrates, up to Canada and down to Mexico, all 3 countries across the continent. It really connects us all. And so, the concept of the Migrating mural on a macro level is, okay, well, how it connects Utah with Arkansas, with Florida, with San Francisco, with, and beyond. And so, to have then here within Ogden to kind of have, an even more focused kind of circuit of connection, I think just kind of tells a deeper story, and it's something we would certainly love to continue in other places. So having that scale here in northern Utah is a really wonderful thing, because ultimately what we're trying to do is sort of create that scale across a continent.
So a couple things. One, I think it would be great to find those 6 people and get their photograph in front of the mural.
I think it was like one student, a couple faculty
I think
members.
it was Scott Patria,
Yeah.
it was Chaburka, it was Matthew Chaburka, it was Scott Springer,
It was
you.
Amy was there.
It was
Yeah.
Amy, and
And then one student,
Was
one
there
random
one student? I want to
One
say that.
student.
Because we wanted to
April
read.
was there.
April was there. Yeah.
April was there.
Yeah.
And then 2, Jane, maybe you can fill us in on this. What is the migration pattern? Like, what is the significance of Utah?
Thank you
and how
so much
that's
for asking that,
involved?
Brandon, because it's actually pretty cool. There are 2 different migration patterns. So there's an eastern population, a western population. The eastern one is the one that I think more people are familiar with, and that's from Canada to Mexico, and they traverse that through
4 to 5 different generations, which is really amazing. The Western population, it's not as studied as the Eastern population, but it goes from the Pacific coast down to Baja California, and then they migrate up into Canada, but the divide is really at the Rockies. So Utah is an incredibly important state for spring and summer migration patterns of Western monarch butterflies. So we couldn't be more thrilled to be able to share that particular story. We're a little thin on that. We have installations in Arkansas and in Florida. We're working on a central corridor, but the Western population, we've got an installation in San Francisco, and then 3 in Ogden, Utah. So we need to fill out more of that Western population story. So thank you for asking that.
It's so funny. I'm hearing this beautiful story, and all I'm picturing is like a East Side, West Side Monarch rumble.
Oh,
Just like
wow.
I love
Nice.
that.
Yeah.
I love that.
I could see more of like,
When monarchs collide.
That's right.
well, I can see it more of in a musical
East
sense.
Side.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, they do dance like a butterfly, right? I mean, to that point, and I think that sort of goes back to our original inspiration for the Monarch was one of the things that I think Jane and I actually kind of came when we were wrapping up the Bighorn. I think we actually sort of landed on the Monarch independently, even though we're married and work together. Like sometimes we just have like independent ideas that
What?
Just
What? Two people have different
independent
independent
ideas?
ideas?
Well,
Crazy.
that neither of us had really realized that we were already trending on. But back in I believe it was in 2014, the Fish and Wildlife Service announced, I think it was 2014, announced that they were going to begin studying whether monarch butterflies should be listed as endangered species, and that is a decision that's going to be coming down very soon in June 2019. And at that point, so a little bit of just natural history on the monarch. Historically, they've found across the North American continent. And they migrate down to Mexico in the billions. In this one area, it's a pretty small, comparatively small area. A few dozen acres or a couple scores of acres, and it's a high altitude, sort of a mid altitude pine forest, and they descend by the billions down there. And actually, a very famous biologist, a guy named Lincoln Brower, was the first person to discover them back in the 1970s, and he literally just came across this forest, and it was just dripping with monarchs. And
that would be a great after party.
Yeah.
Down there.
Yeah. And so, that's we hope that is maybe our final piece down there. And so those numbers have dropped precipitously. I mean, they've dropped 80, 85, 90% in the last 20 years. So pretty significantly. And also the West Coast population, which to Jane's point, is a lot less studied and a lot less known. But I think I read some numbers the other day where it was maybe 10 or a decade or two ago was 1.2 million in California, and now it's down to 300,000. So these numbers are dropping precipitously, and one of the reasons why we created the Migrating Mural was to highlight animals that are imperiled and bring them to the forefront. So drawing attention to this has a specific reason. I mean, these are really important. Monarchs are pretty important symbols of pollinators in the pollination ecosystem, which is incredibly valuable for a ton of different reasons, economically, in terms of the health of our environment. And when you see animals like these on this scale suffering, you kind of got to ask yourself, what's next?
What's the greater picture?
Yeah, what's
Right.
the bigger picture? If you have these animals that hundreds of millions of them, billions of them. I mean, these are animals that have like human scale populations that have gone from 1.2 billion down to 100 million in 20 years. That's human scale population, right? So you can start to extrapolate what might happen down the road with monarchs as sort of the canary in the coal mine species. So that's something that we are really trying to draw attention to, as are a lot of great organizations, trying to draw attention to that and get people, and get people to think about how we how we manage habitat, the pesticides and herbicides that we use, the importance of trying to address, these huge macro issues like climate change and get governments that support, that support science and support conservation and support the health of not just humanity, but everything living on this planet.
And let's be honest too, butterflies, I'm not a butterfly expert, but the monarch is kind of the face of the butterfly community as far as I see it, right?
Is.
And so
meaning
that the statistics and everything that are related to that particular species, that must affect the rest as well,
they're
right?
definitely indicator species. Absolutely.
So is there a plaque or a call out at the mural at the Monarch that explains this, so where people get more information?
Yeah, we'll be putting up. That was one of the things that Laura was we're working on this evening. So all of our installations have signage, have plaques that kind of talk about they talk about the Migrating mural in general, the artwork specifically, and then kind of the Monarch and what's happening with it. So a couple things people can do just in general is number one, eat less meat. It's just a major contribution to climate change. Number two, planting native milkweeds and wildflowers. Everyone likes big grass lawns, but the reality is that like if you were to plant, native and native is the key. But native wildflowers and native milkweeds, you would see your front lawns just explode with life in the spring and summer in ways that you never would with grass lawns. So that's a big thing, and it's a great umbrella organization called Monarch Watch. monarchwatch.org, I think, is the website, and they've got tons and tons of resources. The Xerxes Foundation is another really incredible conservation nonprofit that's working to protect the monarch and many other species.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
Hi,
It's me.
April.
It's April.
Hi, April.
So is the town that you're referring to in Mexico, Oaxaca?
It's in the state of Michoacan.
Okay.
So Michoacan is in central Mexico.
Okay.
And it's in a small central town whose name is eluding me right now, but it's a sort of a mid-altitude town. It's up around 5,000 or 6,000 feet, and the forest is up around 8,000 or 9,000 feet. But it's about 2 hours north of Mexico City.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I just know that the Day of the Dead is. Oh, hi. I just know that Day of the Dead always uses the monarch as well as part of their visual expression for that holiday. And I just find it interesting because you're mixing visual arts, liberal arts, obviously, and then science.
Yeah.
And then it's
And
such
sociology.
a big part.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And I think that that's amazing that one animal can be part of that in a culture that is spreading. And it means so much. So I thought it was cool to say that you might end that journey down there, which is actually very important to them and symbolistic to them.
Definitely. I mean, the rabbit hole goes pretty darn deep when it comes to butterflies and the monarch in particular. I think that it's an amazing symbol for immigration as well as migration. It's an animal that knows no borders, which is really amazing when you really start to think about it. Like borders is that's a human construct. Nature doesn't see that, doesn't abide by that. It just is. And so I think that that's the beauty of it. It doesn't have to be a contentious thing. It's just a beautiful thing that we can all celebrate the monarch butterfly, and we can cross borders with that, both state and international. It's really beautiful. It's such a wonderful symbol, and the metamorphosis, that's a whole nother thing too, and just what that is. Thinking about the chrysalis, it's not a cocoon. A cocoon is something that the insect builds around them, but the monarch or butterflies become the chrysalis. The chrysalis is still it's a living thing in it of itself.
It's not a shell.
It's not a shell. So that whole process of change and opportunity and potential, it's really quite remarkable. So you can choose to just see it as a beautiful black, white, orange, graphic, interesting looking insect, but it has so much more than just that. And I think that is something very important to Inkwell as well. All of our work, you can end with just it being a beautiful piece, but if you choose to, there's a lot of layers and levels of information that you can take away from that, just as you can with the Monarch.
And I think on that note, there's look, we all have our eyes and ears open. There's a lot of division, especially in this country these days, and a lot of us and them, a lot of red state, blue state, a lot of south of the border, north of the border divisiveness. And I think that the style of work that Jane creates lends itself to I think just general appreciation and bridging and bringing people together. And the Monarch is also an insect that represents transcendence of place and time and culture and people, and really allows us to understand sort of the greater commonalities that we share. And so I think that in this work, in this animal, our goal is maybe an insect can help us all regain or remember a little bit of our shared humanity.
I gotta follow that. There's nothing I could say on that too.
You're the host, man, on this one. Yeah,
I'd say that's brilliant. I think that's an incredible transition. There's one last question that I do have as sort of a voice of this new Nine Rails Creative District community. And metaphorically, this has been answered 10 times fold. But I want to sort of break it down a little bit more so as far as we're creating a new area and the importance of public art, right? And we definitely see the significance of that, but the importance of also bringing in voices outside of our own community into this area, right? And not just simply working with artists within the community, right? And so you've worked in, the work that you do, I don't see as having borders, right? And I don't, I'm definitely somebody that doesn't see that. It's just more of a citizen of the world type person, right? But the importance of a community bringing in voices from the outside. How would you address that specifically, that question?
Man, great point. And I just absolutely love that you are celebrating a creative district that's meant for your local community by also spreading that out to artists outside of that, and understanding the value of opening your doors and celebrating your local community with a national, international, worldwide effort. And I think that's the best way to do it. I mean, we're connected at every single step of the way with the internet, with Amazon, with like everything. Everything is connected, but in this way, it's. I think that there's more. What's the one? I'm struggling with my words. Actual connection, because I'm spending time here in Ogden.
You're spending significant time here.
A significant time here, which is really amazing to be able to become part of Ogden for 2 months. It's great. I get to know the people. For example, I'm going to Cuppa almost every single day. An amazing restaurant.
Great coffee.
On 25th Street. I'm going to the restaurants. I'm going to Birds and Brew at the Ogden Nature Center. It's when you invite someone else to come here, we're going to then take a piece of you guys and bring it back to wherever we are. And our memories and everything that we do here is going to become a part of our story. And how else can we become more connected? Like, I don't know. I don't think that there's another way to do it. So,
I know all I want to do is visit your studio and hang out where you are. And
right. So,
anytime.
It goes back and forth.
The physical just being here is so important. And I think we hope that the Migrating Mural does just that too. You know, we want people to want to go to the places where there's a migrating mural. We want people to visit Arkansas, Springdale, Arkansas. We want people to visit Orlando, Florida. We want people to visit Ogden, Utah. We want to San Francisco. So it's another way to say, hey, all of these different places are now connected together by this one project, by the communities who've embraced it. It's awesome.
And I think that Weber State, that the Ogden Nature Center, that the Monarch, that Ogden First sees the benefit of that, and being part of that family is fantastic.
Yeah, go to
Right.
Weber State. Man, the Kimball Gallery is amazing. It's a gorgeous space. I love it. I was just there to see the faculty biennial, and I was so inspired and moved and delighted to see it. Man, I'm so thrilled to have our next piece be at Weber State.
Yeah, good on. I mean, honestly, good on you guys for having that vision, because it's not. It's not the most common to see community like this embracing something like this in such a broad manner. So that's really heartening, especially at a time when, you know, humanities and arts and sciences are you know,
Really
kind of
divided.
under attack. To see a community really embrace all of the above is it's just a wonderful feeling, and it's wonderful to be a part of it.
Yeah, and this is just the beginning. That's so cool.
It really is.
Yeah.
I dare say that, I mean, we're going to talk again soon.
Yeah,
and so
for sure.
we're going to have a lot more to talk about after a couple, 2-3 weeks. But thank you so much for coming. Thanks for
Thanks
taking your
so
time
much for
after a
having
long
me.
day.
Yeah.
And, you know, and good luck at Weber State.
Thank you.
Now, the Monarch is going to have, Ogden City has their Harvest Moon celebration
Yes.
on Saturday,
22nd,
September 22nd,
Yeah.
and it's going to be most of the day.
Yep.
Trust me, Ogden is very familiar with this festival.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to be down there. And
Nice.
so a lot of the activity is going to be down on 25th Street, so make sure everybody goes up the street and checks out the mural. And you
And
guys
say
are going to be up there for a little bit.
Yes.
From 1 to, I think the dedication ceremony starts at 1.
Yep.
I think there'll be some folks sharing some nice words. We're gonna actually bust out. We've got some Inkwell swag that people, some Monarch and other inspired artwork and wonderful little things that people can take home,
Souvenirs.
and souvenirs.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's the word.
Yeah.
I love it. And the mural work is incredibly photogenic. I know we're
Take
all
pictures.
collectively
Take
behind.
lots of pictures.
Take lots of pictures.
Yeah.
A lot of selfies.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of these selfie-worthy
It's
murals.
definitely
Yeah.
Take a selfie.
Tag
And remember
Inkwell.
that pound symbol that we were talking about earlier?
hashtag.
It's a hashtag opportunity
So,
galore.
and we'll be very clear about this, but feel
Hashtag
free
migrating
to,
mural.
yes, pound sign migrating mural, pound sign Inkwell, pound sign 9 rails, creative district, pound sign 9 rails. There's
many
so many.
pound
Whatever we
signs.
can do.
Pound
Make
sign
sure,
01.
make sure that pound sign's at the beginning, unlike
not
my
at the
mom
end.
who puts
Yeah.
it at the end.
Yeah.
Oops. That's yet another generation. So I'm glad there's other generations.
We'll be hashtagging hard out there. So
Well, we'll talk to you guys soon. Thank
Yeah,
you so
we
much.
can't
thank
wait.
you.
Yeah, thank you much.
May you stand tall. May you know peace. May you stand tall. May you find love.
Well, I'd say after a night of every technical difficulty known to man,
Yeah.
honestly, if you come up with something, I think that these old homes may be a little haunted.
I think it was haunted, but the Japanese whiskey got us through.
They did through. And it's so nice to have the patience of friends. And so thanks again for your patience, Inkwell. And we cannot wait for your work up at Weber State.
Yeah, more to come from them, actually. So we'll be chatting with them soon for our next episode of the 9 Rails Arts Podcast. But that is a wrap for episode 4 of this 9 Rails Arts Podcast, produced by the Banyan Collective, arts and adventure podcasting since 2010. Give us a follow on the 9 Rails Arts Podcast on Facebook. Also on Instagram, it's the number 9 For 9 Rails, search the Banyan Collective on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify. This week, we'll leave you with a little something from our Van Sessions archives. This is from Season 4 of Van Sessions. Local tattoo artist and musician, Jill Johnson.
This song is called The Twilight Zone. It's my most recent song I've written. Sometimes words are hard to understand, and the better things said are the ones that aren't planned. I can't decipher what is real, it's all unknown. And I'm waking up each Sunday in the twilight zone. Could repeat myself till I go soft, 'cause once I get rambling, it's hard for me to stop. You draw a picture of my face and hang it up. Some people call it art, but I would call it love. I'm still thinking about my last birthday, but every time I do, you always get in the way. I still tell myself that I'm okay. It gets easier to believe when we're in the same place. No one's looking. Step outside. The sky's wrapped in a blanket, and I'm the only one alive. But through the window, your eyes are glued on mine. I realize yours are blue for the very first time.